Hey, what's up? This is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to do a fight breakdown for Sebastian Fundora versus Tim Tszyu. Why am I making this video? Well, unfortunately, Keith Thurman is out. He's not going to be able to compete against Tim Tszyu, and this massive opportunity, which was a massive opportunity, has slipped through his hands. And if you ask me, I think this is a clear sign, because this is an MO of his. He gets this close to the fight, then he gets injured. That maybe it's time for him to hang it up. This isn't the first time this has happened where he's made it this close and then he just couldn't make it through the training camp. So maybe he should hang him up. But I want to take this time and I want to do this fight breakdown for Sebastian Fundora versus Tim Tszyu. And if you're unfamiliar with how I do things, basically I'll just run down a list of attributes. Whoever has more points in the end, that's the individual that I'm going to pick to win the fight. And without further ado, let's jump into this. I'm going to start off with power. Who has more power? I'm going to go with Tim Tszyu. He's a wrecking machine. Everything that comes in his path, he absolutely destroys and demolishes. He's got more power. Sebastian Fundora does have some pop, but he doesn't have the same type of pop that Tim Tszyu has. Tim Tszyu has the type of pop that makes you timid after you get hit, while Sebastian Fundora just has the type of pop that makes you respect him and, makes you conscious of him, but it doesn't make you timid. There's a difference. Want to back you up, want to make you a completely different fighter during the fight. Got to get that point to Tim Tszyu. Speed. I'm going to get this to Tim Tszyu as well. Here's the thing about Sebastian Fundora. I think he's an okay fighter. I'm not going to say he's great or anything like that. I'm not even going to call him good, to be honest with you. I think he's very clumsy, and that's due to his stature. He's just a very clumsy guy, and I think he could be faster if he fought in certain ways. And I'm just talking about minor adjustments, mind you. Not talking about anything major or reinventing the wheel when it comes to him. But I just think he's really clumsy. And even in the speed department, where he should actually have some speed, he doesn't necessarily show it. So I got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Mental toughness. So I'm going to give this to Tim Tszyu, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give mental toughness to Tim Tszyu because he's undefeated. I'm also going to give mental toughness to Tim Tszyu because he's constantly improving in his opposition. You got to give him credit for that. The reason why I was going to go with a tie is because Fundora has been dropped multiple times and he's managed to rise back up and even win fights. However, I got to give it to the guy I typically give it to the guy who's undefeated, so I'm not going to break my streak and I'm not going to go against my code and my rules, so I'm going to give it to Tim Tszyu. Boxing IQ. So Fundora and Tim Tszyu are kind of alike in a sense. They kind of do their own thing. But I would say, you know what, I got to give it to Tim Tszyu only because he has been matched up with multiple different styles. But I think he still manages to be himself within the conflicting styles, or the opposing style, shall I say. And that's not an easy thing to do because, you're going to have to bend to the will of someone else, whether you like it or not. Maybe that person hits hard. Maybe they're really fast. Maybe they're really slippery. Maybe they're a big combination puncher or something like that. Maybe they're really good at sticking and moving. But Tim Tszyu manages to always be himself. He's never afraid away from being himself. And that does take boxing IQ, because you have to know what somebody else is doing in order for you to maintain and sustain who you are in the ring. Got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Versatility. I guess I'll give this one a tie. Neither one of them are the most versatile guys in the world, so I guess I'll give it a tie. Tim Tszyu is going to step on the gas. Fundora is going to step on the gas. Fundora is going to come in and try to box, but especially going up against the likes of a Tim Tszyu, this is going to be a slugfest, and it's not going to be a very long slugfest. But Fundora will try to box. The problem with Fundora is he doesn't realize how big he is, or how tall he is, rather. He doesn't realize how long his arms are. And he doesn't utilize any of his natural abilities and his height and his reach. And that's going to be a major hindrance to him as the fight progresses. Let's see, defense. Honestly, I would... In his last fight, Tim Tszyu was actually a lot better. He's big at deflecting. He'll just kind of paw the hand away. And while he takes baby steps, as he's coming towards you, he's just slapping away, taking baby steps. High guard typically, head down, and he's going straight in. Fundora is actually kind of the same way. Fundora, if there's anything that I could change, I would change his stance. I would change his range. I don't understand why he fights so low. If I were him, I would be like Lennox Lewis. Hands out like this, and my head would be back. There's nobody's going to touch him. Nobody. Simple as that. And you don't have to have great footwork if you're that tall. All you have to do is take one big wide step back, and now everybody's out of range of view. Simple as that. But for some reason, his team, his coaches, they don't teach him that. I really don't understand why. They just don't teach him that. Cardio. I'm going to give this one to Tim Tszyu. Tim isn't doing anything like super spectacular in there where it's going to drain him of all of his strength. You know, he'll give you what you're looking for. If you want to come in going 100 miles an hour, he's going to meet you at 100 miles an hour. But if you allow him to, he's not going to throw combinations. Like he's not that guy. He's not going to be jumping all over the place. He's not that guy either. He's not going to have some crazy speed and some crazy pace and some crazy output. He's not going to do any of that stuff. And for that reason, he can keep his cardio smooth sailing. For that reason. Fundora is a little emotional in there. Whatever you bring to the table, he's going to try to match you. And, you know, he's a slugger at heart. You know, like, I like Fundora. But I think he's a slugger at heart, and I don't think this is the fight for him to be a slugger. I think this is the fight for him to be a boxer. And again, he has the frame to box, and for some reason, they don't teach him that, and he doesn't do it. Footwork. I think it's a tie as well. I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's anything special by either guy. However, I guess I could give Tim Tszyu the nod because Tim Tszyu, his game is not all about footwork or anything like that. It's about cutting off the ring. He's a stalker. So therefore, he does very well at that. He stalks everybody. He gets them out of there. Like I said in the beginning of the video, he's a finisher. He's demolished everything and everyone in his path. And quite frankly, I don't too much see for Fundora, you know, being that big of an obstacle. I feel like Keith Thurman was going to be a bigger obstacle. Let me say this as well. I don't feel like the change of opponent is going to change anything in Tim Tszyu. I think actually the change of an opponent works in the favor of Tim Tszyu because I know the mentality of a Fundora versus the mentality of a Keith One-Time Thurman. Keith One-Time Thurman does not like to get hit. He likes to throw punches and hit people, but he himself does not like to get hit. While you look at Fundora, he's willing to stand in the pocket. He's willing to slug it out. He's not going to be on the back foot if he can help it. He's going to stand his ground. He is tailor-made for a Tim Tszyu. So again, I'm not really necessarily worried about the footwork of Tim Tszyu because I know who he's facing, and he's facing Fundora. Fundora's not going anywhere. So again, I think this is going to be a fun fight. Is it a good fight? Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman's a better fight, but this is a fun fight. So we as the fans, we still win because it's not going to be boring. I can promise you that. It's going to be action-packed. Let's see. Who has a better jab? Fundora actually has a really good jab. He actually has a really good jab. He's not the most consistent jabber in the world. That's another strike on Tim Tszyu as well. He's not a big jabber, and he hits so hard. If he were to just be consistent with his jab, I think he could hit like Triple G. I think he would pummel people just like Triple G if he were consistent with his jab. While Fundora, that is one thing I will give him. He understands, again, with his height and his reach. I just think if he were to double up on that jab, he'd be even more, of a threat to anybody he's in there with. With that height, with that reach, and a double jab? Are you kidding me? That's a nightmare for anybody. And again, wide steps back, not reinventing the wheel. Creativity. I guess I'll say both guys. I mean, neither one of them are creative. But because it's on the list, I'm going to say both guys. But neither one of them are creative. You kind of know what they're going to come in there and do. We know that Tim Tszyu is going to go in there and he's going to stalk like a shark and he's going to press forward. We know that Fundora is going to try to box early, and then when that's not going to work and he's not going to back Tim Tszyu down, he's going to say, screw it, let's get it on, and they're going to scrap it out. And that's what it's going to be. And once he gets either rocked, rattled, or bloody, you're going to see a different level of Fundora where he's really going to get going. So there you go. Punch output. I'll give it to Fundora. I'll give it to Fundora. I mean, like I said, Tim Tszyu, would you rather throw a lot of punches or throw singular punches, but they're crisp, accurate, sharp punches? That's Tim Tszyu. He'd rather hit you with a punch that's really going to hurt and that is perfectly placed versus, you know, I'm not saying Fundora is a huge volume puncher, but he is going to be throwing a lot more punches than Tim Tszyu. And I imagine since he's going to be on the back foot, he's going to be throwing a whole lot more punches than Tim Tszyu just to try to get him off of him, especially if they hit those ropes. He's really going to be throwing a lot of punches. Let's see, body work. Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is a body slugger, and he's going to go to the body of Fundora, which is not going to be hard to find because the guy is tall as a house. So it's not going to be hard to find. Let's see, durability. Got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Like I said, he's been down, he's gotten back up, and he demolished his guy. On top of that, he's been cracked, and he's demolished his guy. And he's on an absolute tear, demolishing guys. So you got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Hands down, Tim Tszyu. You got to give Fundora all kinds of props and praise when he's in the ring. He's not a weakling. He's not a coward. He's not somebody who's gonna bend the knee or bend his will. No, he's going to fight. You are going to get every ounce of every inkling inside of him. That's who he is. That's who he is, and we gotta respect that. Dude's full of heart, but there's a difference between having a lot of heart and being naive and just continuing to run into the fire. And that sometimes, or at least in the fight where he got laid out, he was just being naive. Let's see. Danger, my favorite category. Who's more dangerous? So these guys mentally, let me say this, personality-wise, they possess a lot of the same characteristics. They're both warriors at heart. They both don't mind going down, and their overall mission does not waver once they get back to their feet. A lot of guys, they go down, and then they get up, and they're not the same guy that went down. Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo. He's a perfect example of that. You know, he wasn't the same guy when he got back up with Canelo. While you look at Tim Tszyu, you knock him down, you better believe he's coming back for more, and you better believe he wants to get back. Fundora's the same way. Sebastian, you better believe if you hit Sebastian, he's going to try to hit you back. If you knock him down, Sebastian's going to try to knock you down as well. He wants to one up every time. So when it comes to danger, though, I still got to give it to Tim Tszyu because he's been on an absolute tear. I can't give it to the guy who's got losses. I can't give it to the guy who's been knocked out. I got to give it to the guy who's demolished everybody, who's gone up in competition, and who's flatlined the competition. I got to give it to Tim Tszyu. Final thoughts on this video. Let's see. I think Tim Tszyu is going to win. I don't think this is going to be a long fight. I definitely don't think this is going to the late championship rounds. I think it's going to stick to a singular round. At best, I'm going to say this is going to round 7 or 8. But this could be over a lot quicker. It really depends on Fundora if he really wants to stand his ground or not. And how great a shape he's in. But if he really wants to stand his ground or not. It's going to be tricky for him, but I think he has everything suited and needed for a great fight with Tim Tszyu. However, I think he doesn't have what it takes to beat a Tim Tszyu. I don't think he has the fortitude to beat a Tim Tszyu. I think his game plan is going to be really simple. I think if he doesn't utilize that jab, it's going to be over for him. I think if he doesn't back up early, if he decides to stand his ground, it's going to be over for him. Well, I look at Tim Tszyu, I just say keep doing what you're doing. You're already training for a heavy-handed guy who moves. Now you're just training for a heavy-handed guy. Even better, I don't have to chase you. So when I look at this fight, I see Tim Tszyu winning. I see Tim Tszyu knocking out Sebastian, no problem. I don't see Sebastian going to double digits in this fight. I just think he's tailor-made for Tim Tszyu. And mentality-wise, I think he's going to come in tailor-made for Tim Tszyu, if you know what I mean.